No one hates marriage more than married people. When you hear a lot of them talk about their marriages, you're like, my goodness, should we call 911? Do you want to be rescued? But the interesting part is that they actually do not realize that they are painting marriage in the worst way possible, because they are always saying these horrendous things about the things they've gone through to show people, oh my God, look, I am the best wife, I'm the best husband because I endured this, because I sacrificed this. You can see how miserable they are, but they refuse to see that reality because of course it would break them. They have to hold on to this idea that they made the best decision, because accepting the reality is going to be bad for them. They're going to be sinking into depression, and so they have to tell themselves that staying when their husband cheated on them and even infected them with an incurable disease is something that God told them to do. And they're like, see, I'm such a great person because I stayed. I was even ironing clothes for my husband when I knew that he was literally going to meet his side chick. Like, oh my God, I deserve a present for being the most loyal, submissive wife. That sounds like a nightmare. And unfortunately, a lot of women are in such marriages, but they think it's a good thing because we have grown up in societies that is always telling us that the end goal is marriage. That marriage is the only thing that is going to give you purpose in life. If you're not a married woman, you're useless to society. Of course, I know that not all marriages are bad, but let's be honest, the marriage that is always being sold to us, especially as young women, is not beneficial to us in any way. And of course, I'm going to be focusing on how marriage affects women because that is something that I care about. It is true that not all men benefit from marriage. I mean, in patriarchal terms, a lot of men benefit from marriage, but from a human perspective, they also do not benefit from it, but that is none of my business. At the end of the day, a lot of women are actually getting the short end of the stick when it comes to this institution. One of the things I've always found so funny is when someone says that marriage is a business. You're seeing all these people in an uproar saying, no, marriage is not a business. It is a holy institution that was ordained by God. Cannot say that about marriage. It is interesting because when you look at the beginnings of marriage, it was created as a business institution. It was a way of men doing business with each other, and women were the payment that was being used, the property exchange. This institution does not recognize women as human beings, just as property, as a source of labor, as donkeys. That's why there are so many cultures where in order for a marriage to take place, dowry has to be paid. In some cultures, the man has to pay dowry for the girl to compensate the girl's family for taking away their source of labor. Because yes, when you're a daughter in the family, you're the one that is doing all the work in the home, the domestic labor, emotional labor. And so of course, when you get married, the husband has to compensate your family for taking you away. You're literally being sold. And of course, there's some other cultures where the woman has to pay dowry to the man's family. Why? Because a lot of these cultures believe that being a girl, being a woman is a liability. So you need to pay your way into that family because they're taking you in. So you need to secure your own future. Your family has to pay them for them to accept you. And of course, this idea of marriage as a business is something that doesn't really make a lot of people comfortable. But even when we look critically at the alleged benefits that you would get once you get married, you start realizing that it actually doesn't make sense, especially in the modern sense. We're always being told as women that you should get married to a man so that he can provide for you, so that he can protect you. I mean, we've gone decades, civilizations have changed, and you want to tell me that even in modern day, the only thing that a man is supposed to bring into a marriage is being a provider and being a protector, and yet you as a woman, you're expected to be one, a support system for him, then a baby making machine, also his second mother, his glorified housemaid, and of course his intimacy machine. You also have to be his punching bag when he wants to. You're also expected to give up your dreams and ambition and dedicate your entire life to him. And because we live in the modern world, you're also expected to have a formal job and contribute 50% financially to the household. This just sounds like a very, very bad deal. What are you benefiting from marriage as a woman, especially in the modern society? And you know, of course, you'll do all of this, and when you get to your 40s and your 50s, if you get sick, many times your husband will leave you and you'll go look for a younger girl. So what exactly do women get from marriage? They say that he's going to be your provider. That actually doesn't make sense in modern society because provider men do not exist anymore. Being the sole financial provider in a household that has children, that doesn't work anymore. And that's why a lot of women in modern marriages are always expected to also bring 50% financially. And the situation is actually about to get worse because if you're paying attention, the world of work is changing. They are eradicating human beings and they're replacing human beings with AI. We are getting into techno-feudalism, which coincidentally is being pioneered by billionaire men who have sat down and they've realized they want to have rights. They want to be treated like human beings. Ugh, it's so exhausting. Why don't we just get rid of them and replace them with robots and AI? So of course that means that a lot more people are going to be jobless. We're getting to a point where the man and the woman in a household that has children might lose their jobs to AI. But of course, even when that happens, as the woman in the household, you're expected to still give birth to children, to still take care of the children, to still manage the household, to still do the domestic chores. And of course, you have to deal with the emotional and psychological stress that comes with losing your own job. But of course, you have to deal with an entire human being who has been taught ever since they were young his only worth in this world is to be a provider. But when they lose their job and they're not a provider anymore, like a 50% provider, they fall into depression and they start blaming you. And they tell you that marriage is the best thing in the world. Marriage in such an arrangement is just a nightmare. And then they tell you that men are the protectors. Protecting what? The same men that cannot protect their own jobs from being taken by AI are going to protect you from what? It also doesn't make sense that a lot of women are encouraged to get into marriages with men when men are the apex predator for women. It means that you're getting yourself one step closer into a situation where your life could be taken at any moment. And if you listen very clearly to a lot of married women, they will tell you the person that you choose to be married to could actually make or break your life. So if modern men are not providers and they're not protectors, then it means that getting into marriages with them is like signing a slavery contract because you're not getting anything in return. One of the things that I've always found to be fundamentally smart when it comes to this institution of marriage is the idea of using love and romance to sell this idea to a lot of young women. And this is something that starts from a very young age. Even before young girls can calculate algebra, they're already thinking about their wedding day, the dress that they will wear. This idea of romance and love has been sold through films, through TV series. The story of Cinderella. Oh my God, she was going through a tough time at home, but alas, it only took a glass shoe for her to be chosen by the prince. This is exactly why this idea of proposals is something that is seen to be so grand, because it's a way of you showing that, oh, I've been picked by a man. Oh, you can't tell me anything. I'm the luckiest woman in the world. He picked me. If a lot of women thought of marriage logically, a lot of marriages wouldn't exist. On one hand, society is always telling women, you're so emotional. But when it comes to marriage, women are actually encouraged to make the decision emotionally. Selling this idea that, yo, you get married to someone because you love them, that is not a logical choice. That is a very much emotional choice. And if you're making an emotional choice in this capitalistic patriarchal world, you're setting yourself up for failure. And this is exactly why this is one of the most powerful marketing strategies that has ever been rolled out, because instead of forcing women into marriage, they had to find a storyline that would make a lot of women aspire to marriage on their own without being directly forced. And this idea of romantic movies has really done it so spectacularly, because it has really ingrained in a lot of women's minds, women and young girls. It has really ingrained in them this obsession of magic of being picked by a man. You will find that a lot of women don't even want marriage, they just want to be picked. This reminds me of a certain K-drama, I think it was called Green Mother's Club, where there's a woman who had been married to a doctor. That marriage was horrible to her. That man was always cheating, always drinking, using their money for gambling. And one time she looked at him and she was like, I need to leave this marriage. And he was like, what, are you tired now? You wanted to be a doctor's wife. And that really sums up one of the main reasons why a lot of women choose to get married. It's not because they want to get married, they just want to have that title. And so you even find there's some women who convince themselves that they love someone just so that they can be picked. They just want that title of Mrs. Enter the man's name. because they've been brainwashed from a very young age that the only success they can ever have in this life is getting married. And this fantasy that is always pushing a lot of women to get married is exactly why we are seeing that in the modern world, a lot of women are choosing divorce because they have the option legally. Once they get into this institution, they realize, oh, it's not the fantasy that they had, then they can leave. It's also interesting that a lot of divorces are actually initiated by women. It actually makes me wonder, if divorce was legal from a very long time, would people romanticize this idea of traditional women? The reason why traditional women existed, the reason why they stayed even when the marriages were bad, is because they didn't have the option to divorce. They were not allowed legally, and also society didn't allow it. We're seeing a lot of people romanticizing this idea of traditional women. They didn't have rights. If being a traditional woman was something that women enjoyed, then would they fight for the right to divorce? Would they fight for the right to have child custody? If the women enjoyed being traditional women, feminism wouldn't exist, you know? I always find it so interesting that when mothers and grandmothers talk to their daughters and granddaughters, they tell them, don't get married, don't have children. But the boys that grow up in those households, the sons, they become men and they're like, oh, I want a wife like my mother or grandmother. Your mothers and your grandmothers hated the lives they lived. But that is what the men who grew up in that family are romanticizing slavery. And this brings me into the myth of the stay-at-home wife. A lot of times in this modern day, when you actually talk about how hard it is to find a job, someone will quickly tell you, you could just get married and be a stay-at-home wife. Anytime someone tells me something like this, I know that this is the kind of person that doesn't talk to people in real life. Talk to women in real life. Talk to the older women. Talk to women in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s. Because yes, it might work for you, but it works for a very small percentage of the population. Majority of people who are stay-at-home wives, they are being emotionally, psychologically, and financially abused. And you know what? They can't even talk about this because they're constantly being gaslighted. Anytime they talk about what they're going through, other women, most especially, like, oh, but you have it good. You're just staying at home all day with your children and your man is providing for you. But we really need to start being honest about the fact that the moment someone has the power to provide for you, they can starve you. Yes, they're going to provide financially for you, but they're going to use that as a way to control you. There's so many instances where you'll get argument with your husband who is providing for you, and suddenly they tell you there's nothing that you're contributing to this family, because to him bringing in the finances means that he's doing everything. He's not seeing the sacrifices that you had to go through to bring children into this world, and children that end up bearing his name. He didn't carry the pregnancy, he didn't give birth to the children, but he's telling you that you contributed nothing to the family. You ensure that he's getting his meals, that he's coming home to a very peaceful home, a very clean home, but still you're contributing nothing to the family. You're the one that has to do the entire psychological and emotional labor in the household, but of course you're contributing nothing to the family. This is one of the reasons you see that when a lot of women get into marriages, they lose their spark. Suddenly they just look like they're gloomy all day long and they start being overly religious because that's their way of coping, or else they will sink into depression. And of course it gets to a point where the husband gets bored of you being a stay-at-home wife because you're so boring. You're always taking care of the children. You don't even have time to shower because you're always cooking, you're always carrying the children, you're always cleaning the house. You don't even look attractive anymore. And then he goes to cheat. I find it so interesting when a lot of young women romanticize this idea of stay-at-home wife instead of just going to ask the women in their old age who were stay-at-home wives. Go talk to them. Go talk to them instead of being lied to on social media. Traditional women were not filming their lives. Traditional stay-at-home women did not have rights. Then of course we come to the idea of submission. This is one of those things that I honestly do not understand. Like, even if you try to explain to me the idea of submission, I do not understand because one, I'm a firstborn daughter, and every firstborn will tell you we are leaders, we are bosses. Telling me to submit to what? No, I'm a boss. I make the rules. I'm a leader and I'm good at what I do and I'm smart. So no, I'm not submitting to anyone. Understand this idea of oh, you need a man to lead you. Lead you where? I've been leading myself, and I've always been winning at leading myself in my own life. So now, I am so great that I don't understand this idea of submitting. Submitting to what? Especially a man? This idea of submitting to a man in marriage is definitely one of those things that is used to justify the oppression of women. And this is reinforced by this idea that, oh, a girl should only stay in her father's house, and once she leaves her father's house, she should go directly into her husband's house. The story was crafted so perfectly. She's always submitting to someone, first her father and now her husband. That's why for a very long time they didn't want women to be independent. They didn't want women to leave university and then go to work. There are actually some tribes in my community where once a woman gets into university, she's forced to get married before she completes her university education, to get married and actually have at least one child, so that by the time she's completing her university education, she just goes directly to become a wife, and she doesn't have time to know more about the world, to know the options that she could have. This is still happening today, and some people think that, oh my god, women have all the rights, women have become over-empowered. It's also very interesting that even when it comes to this idea of submission, the dream for a lot of patriarchal men is actually not to look for a woman that is most likely to be submissive. What they dream about is to go look for the most independent, most ambitious woman that likes her career and actually force her into submission, force her to become a stay-at-home wife. For them, that is the ultimate win, because they've been able to break it down. They've been able to make you quit your own life and submit to them. They want to pin you down with a ring, with a pregnancy, and then they're going to go out there and be like, yeah, I conquered her. And the church is always reinforcing this idea. When you hear a lot of pastors talking about women, it's like, oh, women shouldn't make money, women shouldn't build wealth, because as a woman, as a wife, you should be supporting your husband in making money. When I hear such pastors, I'm like, what are you talking about? Did you not read Proverbs 31? The Proverbs 31 woman is an entrepreneur. She owns land. She's rich, and she's rich from her own efforts. What do you mean you're telling women not to make money and to submit to their husbands? And you're trying to use the excuse of the Bible, but you are jumping over Proverbs 31. It reminds me of a passage from a book that I've been reading, The Merchant of Venice. The devil can cite scripture for his purpose. An evil soul can produce a holy witness. The more you listen to a lot of these pastors, the more you realize that religion has just been used as a way to oppress women, as a way to just put forward patriarchal ideas, because even religion does not want women to be human beings. I've always found it so interesting with this idea of submission in marriage, because they always expect that you as a woman, you're going to give everything to your husband. Even when you have $1 million ideas for businesses, you are going to give them to your husband. You, the wife, you're going to manage those businesses, you're going to grow them. But you know what? Legally, you have no stake. You actually are not given any part of those businesses that you created and managed. And if you divorce and you dare to ask for half of everything, they're going to call you a gold digger. You created everything, and yet they're telling you that you're the gold digger. If you're going to be giving someone your business idea, you better ensure that you're also the founder of that business, that legally your name is there. They just want you to be the most obedient person ever. But what are you getting out of it? You know, when you find men that say, oh, a man cannot be submissive, and you're like, but you submit at work, you submit to your boss, you're so obedient that even when you're being exploited, you can't say anything because you don't want to be fired. But you see, at least at work, you're getting a salary, you get a bonus at the end of the year, you get a promotion, and if you get tired of your job, you can just change jobs as much as you want. But when it comes to marriage, you're just expected to have endless obedience, submit. But what is the ROI? What are you getting out of it? You're not getting paid a salary, you're not getting promotion, you're not getting a bonus. And of course, not all marriages are bad. I know that there's some women who have been able to find a way that works for them. But of course, you have to approach it logically. If you're going in with this romantic fantasy, you're going to get the short end of the stick. Making a life-altering decision based on love and romance is really just stupid. At the end of the day, love changes, people change. And if that's the only thing that you have on the table, then you've really just set yourself up for failure.